When someone mentions Venice, most people immediately imagine a beautiful city built on water with amazing architecture and rich history. And when we think of its architecture, we often picture Doge's Palace, Rialto Bridge, or the Grand Canal. But one particular church often gets overlooked by tourists and even locals, even though it is just as impressive as any other landmark. It is called the Church of St. Mark the Apostle. Let's find out why. Our story begins in 764 AD with Venetian merchants returning from the east. They brought with them the body of St. Mark the Evangelist, otherwise known as St. Mark the Apostle, and laid it to rest in a local chapel. A small church was constructed at the site of his tomb, but this did not prove sufficient for the growing number of worshippers. So in the 10th century, Doge Pietro Candiano commissioned the first expansion of the church. As the wealth of Venice grew thanks to successful trade expeditions, so did the church. In 1173, construction began on a new basilica. The architect of this project is unknown, but historians believe he may have been the same architect who designed the nearby Doge's Palace. Construction took over 80 years due to numerous delays caused by wars, fires, and economic crises. Finally, the church was consecrated in 1297, only to be heavily damaged in a fire 30 years later. The reconstruction would last another 70 years. After its completion, the church became the seat of the Patriarch of Aquileia, one of the most important archbishops in the Eastern Roman Empire. However, the see soon fell under the rule of the Republic of Venice, which prompted Pope Nicholas V to transfer the seat to Venice in 1451. It then became the seat of the Patriarch of Venice, granting the Republic greater independence from the Pope. Let's now take a closer look at the facade. Its design is unique among Venetian Gothic buildings, being more ornate and decorative than any other example. It was completed between 1483 and 1517 under the direction of Bartolomeo Buon and Antonio Dito. The facade follows the traditional three-part division of a basilica, although it is much more elaborate than other examples. The tall central section projects slightly forward and consists of 4 bays divided by 2 columns. The lower bay contains the main entrance framed by 4 columns supporting a triangular pediment. Above it are 2 smaller arches framing a window. The side bays each contain a single window separated by a column. At the top of the central section sits a statue of St. Mark by Tullio Lombardo. This is the only free-standing sculpture on the entire facade. To either side of the central section are 2 square towers capped by pointed roofs. These were originally used as bell towers, but they were also meant to emphasize the height of the central section. The 3 sections of the facade are connected by string courses that run horizontally around the building. The topmost one serves as a base for a series of statues representing various saints and evangelists. 2 more string courses divide the upper portion of the facade into 3 sections, each containing a large window with tracery. Between the windows are statues representing the 4 virtues: fortitude, justice, temperance, and wisdom. Above these are 5 more statues representing faith, hope, and charity, along with 2 female figures representing Venice and the lagoon city. The facade is covered with sculptures and decorative elements, creating a highly ornate appearance. We will now enter the basilica and take a look at the interior. We will begin our visit at the entrance, which is flanked by 2 white marble columns and topped by a triangular pediment containing the church's dedication. The floor is decorated with black and white marble, which will continue to appear throughout the interior. Continuing inside, we reach the crossing, where the nave meets the transept. At the center of the crossing is a large bronze chandelier made by Bartolomeo and Alessandro Baldi. The 4 sides of the crossing are marked by massive columns decorated with intricate carvings. Looking toward the altar, we can see the high altar, which was designed in the 18th century. It contains the relics of St. Mark, which were discovered during the construction of a new sacristy in 1898. The altar is surrounded by 7 altars dedicated to various saints and historical figures associated with the church. On the right side of the crossing is a pulpit adorned with scenes from the life of St. Mark. The pulpit was carved in the 15th century and is considered one of the finest examples of Venetian Gothic sculpture. Opposite the pulpit is the 15th century baptistery, decorated with scenes from the baptism of Christ. We will now move into the nave, which consists of 5 bays divided by 4 columns. The columns are decorated with intricate carvings, as are the capitals supporting the pointed arches. Between the arches are 5 large windows with colourful stained glass depicting scenes from the life of St. Mark. At the end of the nave, we reach the organ loft, which is supported by 2 large corbels in the form of angels. The organ was built in the 19th century and is considered one of the finest examples of Venetian neo-Gothic architecture. Moving into the left transept, we come to the first chapel, which contains a tomb of a bishop and an altarpiece depicting the Virgin and Child with saints. The second chapel contains a tomb of a cardinal and an altarpiece depicting a Venetian saint. The third chapel houses a large organ and contains an altarpiece depicting the Annunciation. The fourth chapel is dedicated to St. Joseph and contains an altarpiece depicting him with the Virgin and Child. In the right transept, the first chapel contains an altarpiece depicting the Assumption of Mary. The second chapel houses the relics of St. Theodore and contains an altarpiece depicting his martyrdom. The third chapel contains an altarpiece depicting the Transfiguration of Christ. The fourth chapel contains an altarpiece depicting the Virgin and Child with saints. Behind the altar, we can access the sacristy, which contains a collection of valuable paintings and artifacts, including a 15th century triptych by Giovanni Bellini. We will now return to the nave and look at the ceiling. The nave has a series of pointed arches supported by the columns below, while the transepts have a quadriform groin vault. The vaults are decorated with intricate ribs and are illuminated by colourful stained glass windows. The windows in the transepts depict scenes from the life of St. Mark, while those in the nave depict various saints. Finally, we will briefly discuss the artwork contained within the basilica. The church contains a diverse collection of paintings, sculptures, and other works of art, including works by renowned artists such as Titian, Veronese, and Tintoretto. One of the most famous works is Titian's Assumption of the Virgin, which hangs above the high altar. Other notable paintings include Veronese's Paradise and Tintoretto's Miracle of St. Mark. The church also contains a number of sculptures, including several tombs and monuments to prominent figures associated with the church. One of the most impressive sculptures is the bronze statue of St. Mark by Tullio Lombardo, which stands on the facade of the basilica. In conclusion, the Church of St. Mark is a masterpiece of Venetian Gothic architecture. Its facade is one of the most ornate and decorative in Venice, while its interior is home to a diverse collection of paintings, sculptures, and other works of art. From its humble beginnings as a small chapel to its current status as the seat of the Patriarch of Venice, the church has played an important role in the history of Venice and is well worth a visit for anyone interested in architecture, art, or history. So next time you visit Venice, be sure to check it out. You won't regret it. Thank you for watching. Please leave a like if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing to see more videos like this in the future.